Hi, you're listening to This Is Not Your Practice Life. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friends. I'm a certified life and emotional intelligence coach. And if you really want to step into your highest self, there are a few non-negotiables you're going to have to learn, and I am just the person to help you do it. No matter your past, I'm here to help you create a more fulfilling future. So stick around with me. Not only will I teach you how to navigate your brain's daily mind drama, but I'll help you actually understand your mind, your emotions, why you do the things you do, and why others do the things they do. Most importantly, I'll help you build the self-awareness skills to create whatever results you want. It's never too late to change the trajectory of your life. After all, this is not your practice life. Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. I'm Macy Renee, and I'm so excited to have you here listening, whether you're brand new, welcome, or you're a returning listener. So, as you probably noticed last week, I took off from releasing a podcast because I have been dealing with some sort of like sinus allergy junk that just refuses to go away. And I honestly am starting to think that whatever is irritating me is in our house. So I think our air ducts maybe need to be cleaned. I have dusted, I have vacuumed, I have done anything that I can to try and get over this, and yet it is so irritating. So hopefully I don't sound as nasally as I did 2 weeks ago. I also purchased a new mic because I went back and listened to a few of my most recent episodes and noticed that my mic was sounding very glitchy and staticky in the background, which was kind of weird. And I hate poor quality podcasts that are produced out in the world. So I also took that time to order a new mic and kind of get settled with that and make sure everything's good to go. So here we are. But I did spend my time recovering and healing well spent. It was well spent time. And I think you're going to be excited for some announcements that will be coming later on. I may even talk about it next episode a little bit because I'm so excited and I don't know if I can wait, but just stay tuned for that. So today what we're going to talk about is a hack for overcoming your triggers in the moment. So what I find a lot of times with people is that, especially like if your emotional intelligence is not where you want it to be, you will become triggered by something and then you have this lack of impulse control, and usually you will immediately act out the emotion that you're feeling. So let's say you're triggered by something, you get agitated, frustrated, irritated, mad, upset, emotionally sad, emotional. And rather than, sit and process that before responding, what I find a lot of the times and what my clients are usually coming to me to work on is their ability to slow down, get present in their body, be with the emotion that's in their body before responding. So I'm going to teach you a hack that I learned several years back early on in my coaching journey that really helped me, shift the way that I respond to the triggers that are happening in the moment. Because if you're anything like me, oftentimes when we're triggered by something and we respond and we look back at it later, whether it's an hour later, a day later, a week later, it seems really silly. But depending on how we respond also gives us the result that we get. And sometimes that result is like further separation between you and your partner or your friend or your sibling. It's like if we do not control our emotional reactions to things, a lot of times we will end up in a situation that doesn't feel good. And we can think, hindsight's 2020. So a lot of times we could say, if I would have just responded differently, maybe it wouldn't have ended in this way. So I want to teach you a hack that I learned early on in my coaching journey that was a concept that another coach had taught, and she taught it in a different way. And I'll teach you kind of the things that she was saying in regards to it. But I was recently thinking like how powerful this concept is for the moments when we feel very emotional about something and we want to react rather than sit with ourselves first and then respond later. So I want you to think about a scenario in which maybe you become irritated with your significant other or your family member or your parents. See, like the holidays are coming up and maybe your parents just totally say all the wrong things around you, right? Quote, air quotes there, all the wrong things. And you get irritated and you just feel like you're never going to have the type of relationship that you want with them, because when you just try to speak with them or engage with them or tell them something exciting in your life, they don't get it. And it creates this negative experience in your body, in which case you want to just lash out and yell at them or explain yourself or, go off on them because they don't get it and they don't understand and you don't feel like they're being supportive. So just think of a scenario in which that has happened, or you kind of anticipate that it could happen. Okay. So years ago, whenever I was getting coached very early on, one of the coaches that I was working with talked about, how do you want to remember this in hindsight? And when she was talking about how do you want to remember something in hindsight, she meant it in the sense of slowing down and being super present in the moment to think about how you are creating a result. So when you put the example that I gave, or the scenario of, imagine that you are becoming irritated or starting to feel some negative emotion in your body because you're trying to, communicate with someone or relate to someone, and it just seems that they're not getting it. They're not responding the way that you would want them to. They're not behaving the way that you would want them to, and you can feel in your body that you're getting very upset. And this is the moment where emotional intelligence is key, and where there is a big difference between people who are working on this skill and people who are not, and people who have this skill and people who do not. It's a matter of how you respond in the moment, okay? So someone with very strong emotional intelligence that has been working on this, very actively practicing their self-awareness, is going to feel that emotion, and they're going to recognize that their thoughts are creating that emotion. And they're going to be able to slow themselves down and coach themselves through almost in such a way that it's like, should I respond in this moment right now? Not suppress my feelings, not communicate how I'm feeling with this person, but in this moment, would it give me the best result? And a lot of times, if you really have listened to my podcast for years, you'll know that I say when emotions are high, intelligence is low. Meaning that when you are emotionally triggered by something, your emotional intelligence is already going down, okay? So the way that you would respond when you're in that emotional trigger is not going to be the way that you would respond when you have taken some time for yourself to calm down, be with that emotion before responding to the person. So when you have practiced emotional intelligence, you're not going to just react. Your impulse control is going to be really, really good, and you're going to recognize that it's probably not the best time to respond, even though your body really, really wants to, right? Your mouth really, really wants to respond. So people who have not practiced this skill and maybe do not have as high of emotional intelligence are going to be the people who lash out, who start fighting with their words, fighting with their hands physically, right? Really rip into someone, go off the handle, I guess you could say, and really lose themselves. And maybe later they regret it, or maybe later they have justified their behavior. Like, well, that person pissed me off and that's why I behaved that way. Okay. So that's going to be more of like the lack of emotional intelligence. And it doesn't mean that they don't have any. It just means that in that particular skill of impulse control, they have not learned how to sit with themselves and their feelings. So the whole concept of how do you want to remember this in hindsight was very powerful for me in strengthening my emotional intelligence, because in the moment, whenever you're triggered, if you can get into your body, and when I say get into your body, it's almost like get into your body to feel the emotions, but also get into your brain to see what your brain is offering. A lot of times what your brain is offering are all the all the comebacks that you want to say to the other person, all of the ways that you feel defensive, all of the ways you want to justify what you're about to do or say next. And you can kind of see how your brain is operating. You want to tell them, no, you're wrong. You want to tell them, you're not listening to me. You want to tell them how the way that they're thinking or behaving is not the right way. So you can kind of foresee a lot of times if you calm yourself down and slow yourself down enough to feel what's in your body, you can actually kind of see your brain playing out the scenarios of what you want to say. Okay, and the key of strengthening that impulse control and the whole how do you want to remember this in hindsight is getting your brain to a place of like, if I say what I want to say, what result might this give me? What memory might I create of this moment? And do I want to have that memory of this moment? So for instance, to give you an example, because I know this might be a little confusing. Anytime I can feel myself becoming triggered by someone, and I can feel myself becoming angry, and I can feel myself wanting to react to someone in a negative way, the first thing that pops into my brain is how do I want to remember this moment in hindsight? Meaning that whenever I look back on this conversation, do I want to have memories like we worked it out? We really talked through that in a way that I didn't think was possible. We overcame that. Or do I want the memory in hindsight to be like, I stormed out of the house, got into my car, left, we were fighting, we said mean things to each other, I sent them a nasty text message, now we haven't spoke in 3 weeks. Like in any present moment, especially when you're negatively affected by something or someone, you have the opportunity to ask yourself, how do I want to remember this moment in hindsight? Okay? And it will bring you back into the present moment of what is actually happening as it's happening. And then you get to decide from that place how you want to respond based on how you want that memory to be in hindsight when you look back. Do you want a little argument about how, let's say your husband or your wife doesn't load the dishwasher right? It sounds so silly, but people get coaching on it. There's nothing too big or too small ever for coaching, okay? Let me just tell you. And I used to have to get coaching on this because the way that I wanted the dishwasher organized and filled was not the way that my husband did it. And as petty as it sounds, because it is pretty dang petty, it would cause this rift in our relationship because it was like, you're not doing it right. I would be like, you're not doing it right. And I would feel very uncomfortable just the way that it was done. It's like, I feel like they're not getting clean, or I feel like it's wasting water, or I feel like this, I feel like that, right? And trying to communicate that, but doing it from a place of like distress and frustration would lead my husband to feeling like, you're treating me like a child. Like you're treating me like you're my mother, and I already have a mother. I don't need another mother. Right? And then my response, being triggered from that, would be like, I wouldn't have to be that way if you knew how to do it right and if you knew how to do it correctly, right? And so it would create this tension within our relationship over something so stupid as a dish being done the quote-unquote wrong way according to my manual. And if you're new here, you might not know what I mean by saying manual. There's an episode on that. It's going to be earlier on in the podcast when the podcast was still called Becoming Your Highest Self, but there's an episode on manuals and what that means. And so I would recommend that you go and listen to that episode. But it was just like, oh my God, we're fighting over the dumbest things, and we're creating tension in our relationship over the dumbest things, or I'm creating tension in this moment over the dumbest things. And I didn't like how that felt, and I didn't like that my memories surrounding house chores, right? Or him trying to be helpful and even put dishes in the dishwasher, I didn't like that my memory of it was like we fight. That I didn't like hindsight being we fight about it. We argue about it because they don't do it right, right? He doesn't do it right. It's like that was really, really frustrating for me. I didn't want to have that memory. So when I learned this concept and I could, and I started applying it when he was loading the dishwasher, for instance, and I was, in a different part of the kitchen, but I could see him loading the dishwasher. In that moment, this is what I mean by slowing yourself down and having impulse control and the emotional intelligence required for it. I would see the dishes being loaded the way that I would not load them. And instead of being like, you're doing it again, why can't you just listen to me and, load them the correct way, the quote unquote right way. Instead of doing that, I was able to be in my negative emotion of feeling like, oh my gosh, there he goes again, loading it wrong, right? It's really not a big deal. The dishes get washed no matter what. I'm proud to say I have no care in the world how the dishwasher is loaded. I just am excited that it's loaded. So there is hope for all of you out there that are annoyed by the way your significant other or partner sweeps or makes the bed or, cleans something, whatever. There's hope, okay, with coaching, I promise. But to go back, if I saw him doing it and I felt the negative emotion, what I did instead of starting an argument or telling him he's doing it the wrong way or pushing him out of the way to go handle it myself in that moment, I sat with the emotions in my body. I did not respond. I did not say a word. Okay, I sat with myself and my emotions and I practiced the concept, how do I want to remember this in hindsight? The truth of the matter was in that moment, I don't even want to remember this in hindsight. I don't even want this to be a big deal. I don't want to have memories in my memory bank of even him loading the dishwasher. I don't even want to care about it, right? And the way that I will create a memory around this is if we start an argument and we're fighting over it. And I think that's a really stupid way of having memories in my memory bank. So in hindsight, I don't want to remember this as the moment where we fought and he said, you're acting like you're my mom and I don't need another mom. Like I don't want those in my memory bank. That's not what I want. In hindsight, I want to be able to be appreciative that he's, contributing to the household and I don't even have to ask. In hindsight, I want to be thankful for everything that he does. In hindsight, I want to be, loving and appreciative and be able to say thank you from a true place of thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. I want to be in more of the feminine energy and not this masculine kind of control it kind of energy. I also have a podcast on that. Okay? Because a lot of women get stuck in masculine energy where it's like, if you're not doing it the way that I would do it, don't do it at all, which is masculine, right? Whereas feminine energy is more so like, thank you so much, more appreciative, more lean back, let people help. And women who have been hurt or who have trauma or have a lot of childhood stuff or maybe didn't have their father growing up or have come out of bad relationships or abusive relationships or narcissistic relationships, they tend to be more in masculine energy because of things they felt that they had to handle for it to get done. And there is a place for masculine energy within women. However, if it is your primary energy, a lot of times you will end up mothering your partner and you will end up pushing them away. And the truth is there's only within a relationship, there has to be a balance. There is either the person that holds most of the masculine and the other person that holds most of the feminine, or vice versa. So what that means is if a woman is holding most of the masculine of getting stuff done, of making sure things are done quote unquote the right way, if you're, not asking for help, or if you are asking for help and then condemning someone for helping because they didn't help the way that you think that they should have, you're holding a lot of masculine energy, meaning that your partner will naturally fall into the feminine energy of they're going to be lax, they're going to be less apt to kind of jump in and fix anything or help anything. And it's because there's only room for one or the other. So what a lot of women come to me to work on is the fact that they're stuck in this very masculine energy, and they're, it's really creating this tension and this negative impact on their relationship. And so this is another way, ladies, if you recognize that this is you, to come into the moment of, how do I want to remember this in hindsight? So going back to my example, I don't want to remember anything about chores in hindsight other than I'm so appreciative that he is helpful, right? I don't want to remember you did it the wrong way and then we started fighting and then you called me, another mother, and then I got mad and then I got in my car and I stormed off and then we didn't talk for 2 weeks. Right? That's never happened because I've never let it get that far. But I'm saying there's an opportunity where in the moment you get so mad, you can almost play out in your brain how something is going to go down if you keep responding the way that you feel like responding, with lack of impulse control. And if you don't want it to be like that, then you have to get very present in your body and ask yourself powerful questions. Is it worth it? Right? Is it even worth it? And another version of that I think is much kinder and much more powerful to ask yourself is, how do I want to remember this moment in hindsight? Okay, same thing with your kids. Let's do this, because I have a lot of parents who come to me and they're like, I want to be more present with my kids. But every time I try to be present with my kids, my mind goes elsewhere and I start thinking about all the tasks that I need to get done, and the dishes that need to be washed, and the laundry that needs to get done, and the dinner that needs to be cooked or put away. Or my kids, are demanding my attention and I feel like I don't have the capacity to give them that attention. And then I just get mad at them and I yell at them and I scream at them. And then I feel guilty because I yelled and screamed at them when all they want is my attention, and on and on and on. Okay, a lot of parents go through that. I could go on and on for days about how many people get coaching on that alone. And again, a powerful question to ask yourself is, how do I want to remember this in hindsight? So when your kid comes over and they're yanking on your clothes and they're, mommy, daddy, please play with me, come watch this movie with me. In that moment, your brain, you can see exactly what it wants to do. It probably wants to say no for whatever reason. If it does want to say yes, it's probably going to be followed by guilt or shame for what, guilt because if you say no, you're going to feel guilty, or shame because if you say yes, you're avoiding another task that you believe needs to be done right then, as if your house is on fire. Okay. And so I just want you to slow yourself down. When your kids are asking for your attention, there's a reason why. There's a need that they likely need met. Okay. They don't always know how to communicate that. They certainly don't know how to communicate it in an emotionally intelligent way, especially if you do not have those skills to teach them that, which is what I found, right? Like, how can I teach my kids to be emotionally intelligent or respond emotionally intelligently? I don't have kids yet, but I'm thinking ahead of time. How would I ever teach them that if I don't have that skill and if I'm not working on that skill? So your kids, a lot of times, they don't know how to emotionally regulate. They don't know how exactly to communicate their needs. And what I find is that also parents don't know how to emotionally regulate, and they don't know how to communicate their needs. So when your kids are coming over and they're asking for your attention, you see it as sometimes demanding your attention. And there may be moments where they are demanding your attention because there's needs that they want met. They don't know how to communicate it in a way that you're going to maybe take it seriously, because maybe in the past you're like, I can't right now, or I don't want to right now, or I've got other things to do right now, right? So what I'm challenging you to think about is, how do you want to remember those moments in hindsight? Do you want to remember those moments with your kids as, I dropped what I was doing and I went and I played, and I have so many memories of us sitting on the floor and playing with their little figures, or watching TV, or going outside and running around and laughing and tickling them. And do you want those memories in your memory bank, or do you want your memory bank filled with, not right now, later, I've got chores, and you doing dishes, and not collecting memories with your kids at the age that they are now, whatever age that is? How do you want to remember this? And this is something I coach myself on now as someone who does not have children, right? Because I know myself, I worked with children actually for a very long time. I started working with kids with special needs in 2011, and I was what was called a CLS worker for children that had, CP, autism, Down syndrome, DiGeorge syndrome, like all kinds of different things. And I would go to their home, pick them up from school, pick them up from therapy, whatever I needed to do. And I would be with them for 3 to 4 hours in the afternoon while their parents worked. And I would help them integrate into the community. So, we'd go to a restaurant and they would learn how to order for themselves, or we would go to toy stores and we'd learn emotional regulation when we're not allowed to have a toy that day, or picking out a toy and learning how to pay for it and money. And so I teach them skills. And then I went through occupational therapy school. The field that I chose to work in was pediatrics, early intervention. And so I worked with kids birth to age 3 for 6 years before walking away and pursuing full-time life coaching. So I've worked with kids essentially since 2011. And I can tell you that even though I'm not a parent, a lot of times all they want is presence. Like they're trying to create memories in their memory bank. And I can remember this. You might even be able to, as an adult, remember this as a kid, where you just wanted your mom and dad's attention, or your grandparents, or whoever raised you. You just wanted quality time with them. I can remember times asking, like, can you play Barbies with me? Or can we ride bikes? And some of my best memories, like, it will choke me up. Like, some of my best memories are being on the back of my grandma's bike in those little, like, seats back in the 90s. Like, I think they still make them, but I can remember being really little, like probably like 3 years old, 3 years old, and riding on the back and thinking that that was just bliss. And I can remember riding my bike with my papa through, the campground when we would go camping with my great grandparents. And I can remember, my Uncle Ralph pulling us on a water tube, or, like the inner tube or whatever, on the lake. And I can remember times, where I went swimming with family members. I can just remember a lot of moments that were vital and are so precious to me in my memory bank. And I'm thankful that in those moments, my caregivers, I'm sure there were times where they said, not right now, I'm busy, or not right now, I've got to do dishes. But I'm thankful for the times that they stopped what they were doing, or felt, this is important, that they're asking for my attention, and it's important that I stop what I'm doing and I make these memories. And so I want you to think, how do you want to remember those moments, even with your kids, in hindsight? Okay, because a lot of my clients come to me and their memories are, I am irritated and I'm mad and I yelled at my kids and I, told them no, and I went on and did dishes and stuff. And the crazy thing is 10 to 15 years from now, that's not going to be what's important. The dishes are not going to be what was important. The laundry is not going to be what's important. What you're going to be crying on as they walk across stage on their graduation day is all of the memories that flash, through your memory of how much quality time you did or didn't spend time with them when you had the opportunity. So in the moment when you're emotionally irritated, aggravated, upset, mad, frustrated, sad, you have an opportunity to say to yourself, how do I want to remember this moment with my mother, with my father, with my husband, with my wife, with my child, with my niece, with my nephew, with my coworker? My best friend, how do I want to remember this in hindsight? If I respond like this based on my negative emotion, I can almost predict what kind of memory is going to be in hindsight, and will I like it? And a lot of times if you respond when you're emotionally triggered, the answer is going to be no. You're not going to like the memory that it produces for you in hindsight. Okay? Versus if you slow yourself down and you practice self-control and you practice being in your body and you practice being with the emotion, and you think ahead and you think, how do I want to remember this in hindsight? I want to remember loving on my kids. I want to remember, even though that I was mad at my mom, that I handled myself so well in my conversation with her. I want to remember that even though I felt like I could absolutely claw my husband, right, if that's how you feel, that instead it ended in a beautiful evening together where we went to dinner and we talked things through and we actually understood each other. And I know like some people are going to listen to this and be like, yeah, right, that could never happen with whoever I'm dealing with. But I promise you that energy is very, very strong, and the energy that you greet someone with is often reciprocated. Okay, so if you're being the stronger, powerful, more powerful energy in an energy that actually feels really good for you, you have the opportunity to turn something around. Okay, and I don't think there are a lot of people out there that really practice that. Like we lose ourselves in our inability to emotionally regulate. And that's why this is a skill and it's really, really hard. And I think a lot of my coaching clients, will be like, this work is way harder doing it every week than listening to the podcast. And I'm like, of course, because the podcast, you get to listen and go about your merry little way and shake your head yes to the things that sound good, but you don't ever have to implement them, right? Like you're not actually always implementing the things that you listen to in podcasts. That's why a lot of times people say, I know what I need to be doing, but I'm not doing any of it. Because you're absorbing information, but you're not applying it. Implementing and listening are two very different things. And I think my clients in working together, I've had like 3 clients say this in the last 2 weeks. They're like, this is really hard. And I'm like, yeah, coaching is hard. That's why not everybody signs up. That's why not everybody does it, because the work that you're doing on yourself is really hard. It's one thing to listen and be like, oh, yeah, I should implement, how do I want to remember this in hindsight? But you're not actually having someone, check you and how you are responding to life events. You don't actually have someone that you're maybe talking it through with. And so you don't always implement the work that you hear here or wherever else you listen to personal development, right? It's different when you're actually doing the work to apply it, because when you're doing the work to apply it and everybody around you is staying comfortably the same as they've always been, you will become very, very triggered. And I see it in my clients a lot. They become very, very triggered and they're like, I'm doing all of this work to heal myself and change and try to grow and try to respond different and communicate different and set boundaries and do all of this stuff. And they're not changing at all and it's getting on my nerves. And I'm like, yeah, that's most of the world, right? You're learning how to exist in a world and be happy in a world and be fulfilled in a world and create a world that feels really good for you when you aren't worried about controlling everyone and everything else. And so, yeah, the work is hard because all of the work is on you. And the result that you get from it is based on what work you are or are not doing. And a lot of people don't want to do the work because doing the work and listening to the work are two very, very different things. Life changes when you do the work, not listen to the work, okay? So if you're out there doing the work, I commend you because I know how hard it is. I've been doing it for, personal development industry for 8 years, almost 9, but I've actually been doing the work for 6, and it's the hardest work I've ever done in my life. And I don't think there is an end date per se, but it does get easier, and you will learn exactly what to do to get yourself in a place that feels really, really good. And so just keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep working at it. You will make it through. It's all going to work out. And I hope that this hack really helps you for overcoming your triggers in the moment. So if I can help you with anything, if you would like to look at coaching together, reach out to me and we can talk about it. You can schedule a consult at MacyRenee.com. I only have 3 one-on-one coaching spots left. So as soon as those are filled, anybody else that is interested is going to have to go on a wait list. And when one of my clients is ready to transition out, then a spot will open, but I do not know when that will be. So just a heads up that if you listen to this and you've been thinking about coaching or you've already had a consult and you have not progressed forward with that, 3 spots left. I'm coaching about 30 brains a week, and it's a lot. It's amazing, but it is a lot, and I want to keep myself sharp so that my clients are getting the absolute best of me. And I know that I can take realistically about 3 more people before I need to just focus solely on them and nobody else. So, yeah, if you need anything, you can reach out. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will see you guys again soon. Bye. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. If you'd like to connect on social media, you can find me on both Instagram and Facebook at Macy Renee Coaching. And if you want to stay up to date on all of my offers, announcements, and inspirational emails, you can join my email list at macyrenee.com. In addition, if there's a way that I can further support you in your coaching journey, you can schedule a free 60-minute consult at macyrenee.com anytime you want so we can discuss the best options for you. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.